And we'd also like to welcome our special guest speaker today, Betty-Ann Reid from Lifewater Canada. Lifewater Canada is an organization that works to bring help and hope through safe, accessible water to individuals around the world. Betty-Ann and I have an interesting connection. Betty-Ann's dad and our father worked together for most of their professional careers. I knew of Lifewater and their good work for many years through our fathers and communication with Betty-Ann's brother. Last year, at the end of October, I received an email from Lifewater inviting me to Ebenezer United Church for a presentation. Well, what are the chances of that? So I came to say hello and to meet the Lifewater team and was very pleased to meet Betty-Ann. It's wonderful to meet the daughter of a man I've known all my life through our father's work. We thank you for coming today and to share the work of Lifewater, and I hope many of you will take the opportunity to speak with Betty-Ann at the end of today's service.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. As Jane said, what a wonderful surprise last fall. We had a number of people that we wanted to meet with in the Markham area, so I Googled churches in Markham and started randomly phoning around, and it was Ebenezer United who phoned me back and said, yes, come and use our space. And Jane came running up and introduced herself, and we realized we had this connection, and that led to me being here today. So thank you for welcoming me so warmly, both last fall and here today. And thank you especially for having me here on a day when we're talking about water. I see water at the front. I know you're talking about the baptism of Jesus. And Lifewater, of course, is all about water. We all use water so often in our daily lives. And think about your morning today. You've probably already used a lot of water. You get up, you use the washroom, you flush the toilet, you wash your hands, you've brushed your teeth. We do laundry, we wash dishes, we clean our homes. But most of all, we drink water. And without water, humans cannot survive. Water is life. And here in Canada, we are so blessed to be able to turn on a tap, and for most of us, safe water flows out. On the next slide, you'll see some of the statistics from the World Health Organization, and frankly, it's shocking and disturbing. The fact is that for many people, surface water, like you see in this picture, is their daily source of water. Hard to imagine, right? When we can turn on a tap, to think about this being your source of water. The fact is that there are 2 billion people in the world who lack safe water. 1 out of 4 people are drinking water that's contaminated by feces. 4 billion people lack sanitation that's satisfactory. The bottom line is that someone, usually a child, dies every 30 seconds because of waterborne disease. So think about that. How long have we been in service today? How many children have died while we've been here singing our hymns and praying our prayers? Unfortunately, water and the lack of safe, accessible water particularly affects females. So traditionally, it's often the girls who do the hauling of water. Each family needs about 3 5-gallon buckets per day. So imagine if you're walking 30 minutes or more to surface water like this, and you're carrying 5 gallons of water that weighs 40 pounds. You're a young girl, it means that you're not in school. It means that your body is suffering from carrying heavy water. It means that you're susceptible to danger because often you're traveling early in the morning, late at night. The other factor related to sanitation that we've realized over the past few years is period poverty. So often with a lack of places to toilet safely or with the lack of access to sanitary products, girls are missing about a week out of school every month. And it just isn't right. And we can do something about it. So these really are the reasons that Lifewater exists. Lifewater was founded on the belief that where you are born should not determine whether you live or die. And in our opening hymn, we talked about being a child of God. And if we really believe that we're all children of God, then surely this isn't right and something needs to be done. When children are sick from contaminated water, they can't go to school. When adults are sick, they can't earn a living to provide for their families. Unsafe water prevents individuals, families, communities, and entire regions from reaching their potential. So Lifewater is currently working in 4 countries around the world to try to address the water and sanitation problems that exist. So we work in Haiti as well as 3 countries in Africa that you can see on the map here. So we have 1 team in Haiti, 2 in Liberia currently, with a 3rd one starting soon, so I'll be talking about that. We have a team in Nigeria, and then 3 teams in Kenya. The next slide shows the kind of projects that we do to address water and sanitation needs. So firstly, we drill new wells, and I'll be showing you a few pictures of what this looks like. The second 2 kinds of projects relate to repairing wells or repairing hand pumps that may be broken. And repairing things that are broken is always the fastest, most cost-effective way of restoring water to communities. So we repair hand pumps, and sometimes wells need further work, which is called a rehabilitation, but both of those are a really big part of what we do in terms of restoring water. The bottom 3 kinds of projects relate to sanitation and hygiene. So we conduct what it says here as H&H workshops, that's health and hygiene workshops. So every well that's drilled, every project that's completed, we do a health and hygiene workshop for the community. So we're teaching things like the importance of hand washing, how to treat a waterborne disease should it occur, how to create a rehydration solutions so that health can be restored, and also how to care for the well that's been drilled. As I mentioned, period poverty is a real issue for girls, often in developing countries, so we're now providing dignity kits at every health and hygiene workshop in Kenya right now, but we'll be expanding that soon to some of the other countries because we found the impact has been huge. When girls can be in school, imagine the ripple effect of not missing a week out of school every month and what that could mean for your future. So girls are given reusable sanitary pads, 4 daytime pads and a nighttime pad that can be washed, and girls are then able to be in school all month instead of just 3 weeks out of the month. And finally, we build latrines or washrooms. So these 6 kinds of projects together are what are called WASH programming, so water, sanitation, and hygiene. This slide shows what drilling a new well often looks like, a loud and messy process. But drilling wells is so important in terms of reaching communities that have never had a safe drilled well before, but also in terms of making sure that the wells that are drilled have a reasonable number of people using them. So sometimes where a well is drilled, there might be up to 600 people using that well. And you can imagine if every family needs 3 5-gallon buckets and 600 people are drawing from the well, it's simply too many and the waits become very, very long. So our goal is to reach communities that haven't had wells before, but also to make sure that there are sufficient wells to serve the number of people that need them. So what you see here is a rig in Nigeria. And the interesting piece here is that you'll see that the drill rig is actually mounted on a truck. And this is something that we will be, we actually have a container on the sea right now heading over to Liberia to create another one of these truck-mounted rigs. And the beauty of it is that traditionally a drill rig is on a trailer, meaning there's a truck, there's a trailer, the rig is on top. Well, as you can imagine, that doesn't travel well to really rural areas where the roads are really lousy. So by mounting the drill right on a truck, we're beginning to be able to access areas that we haven't been able to access before. So in Liberia in particular, we're very excited this spring to get another truck-mounted drill rig in service and to be able to reach communities that are very rural. The next slide shows what a dug well looks like compared to a drilled well. So in the fall, I first started doing some speaking in churches and with community groups, and I accidentally said, Lifewater digs wells. And the person I was traveling with says, no, Betty-Ann, we don't dig wells. And they were absolutely right, and here you see what the difference is. So when communities are seeking water, sometimes they're drawing from surface water like ponds and streams and rivers. Sometimes they have a well like the one you see here that's been dug by hand. But I think it's pretty clear to see how that's not a safe source of water. So they tend to be shallow, they're open, and you can imagine during rainy season in particular, the amount of bacteria and viruses and fecal matter and so on that could be flowing into that well. What you see on the right is what a drilled well looks like that we're providing through our Lifewater teams. So these are generally about 100 to 200 feet deep. They're sealed with a concrete pad, and that's what prevents contaminants from getting down into the well. And then they're powered by a hand pump. And there's a really good reason we do that. Some people ask, do you use solar? Do you pump water into people's homes? And the bottom line is that in countries where maybe the power grid is unstable, where it's difficult to get materials to do repairs, the simple technology of a hand pump is still what works best. So it's a drilled well with a sealed pad with a hand pump on top, and what you see on top there is a red jacket, which is just a security piece to prevent the theft of pump parts. So this is what repairs look like. So on the left you see the repair of a hand pump. So for $125, there often are really simple things that can be done to repair a pump, and it's clearly the simplest way to restore water to a community. So Lifewater teams repair pumps that were put in by us, make sure that the maintenance is done on a regular basis. We also repair pumps that were put in by other NGOs. Often what happens is an organization comes in, they drill a well, they leave and return to North America, and if that well or if that pump breaks down, what happens? They end up returning to their unsafe source of water because there's nobody to repair. So focusing on having solid repair teams that live in each nation who are able to go around and do these repairs, imagine for $125 being able to restore water. What a great use of our funds. On the right, you see a rehabilitation. So sometimes the concrete pad might be damaged and need to come out, or some of the inner workings of the well may need some bigger repair. So we call that a rehabilitation. It costs us a little more, around $1,500, but again, we can restore safe water for a very efficient price. The next slide shows what some of our health and hygiene programs look like. On the bottom left, you see an example of a latrine. We tend not to build a lot of washrooms. They're quite expensive, so we focus on putting them in areas that are very highly populated, so markets, churches, schools, community centers. The bottom right, you see an example of a health and hygiene workshop. So as I said, with every project, we make sure that we're doing teaching about how to care for your pump, how to care for your well, how to wash your hands. And on the top, you see some of the pads being sewn in Kenya. And as I said, we're really excited that we're going to be expanding that pad program to the other countries that we support in Africa. We do all of these things through a three-phase approach. So the first phase is that we train and equip local workers. So our model is not teams from Canada going overseas doing the work and coming back home. Our model is we make sure that people who live in these countries have the training they need for drilling, the training they need for repairs, for sanitation programs, but they also have the trucks and the parts that they need and the drill rigs. So through that training and equipping, then the second part is the teams are able to complete the work. And then it's donors here who, on a project-by-project basis, provide the funding to make sure that the teams have the money to continue doing the work that's being done. So here's what training and equipping can look like. On the bottom, you see a couple of the trucks. So these are the Isuzu trucks with a very narrow wheelbase that can get into those rural communities that we're now starting to mount our drill rigs on. On the top left, you see Alice in the red hat. I just love the fact that she is one of our lead drillers in Kenya. I just think it's really cool that we have some women drillers. And on the right there, you see Hosea. He's the lead of our team in Nigeria, and he's doing some training here for some of the other teams from Africa. So as we train and equip, really empowering people, right? So the teams in Africa are able to start training each other and helping each other to solve issues. Local teams then complete the projects. So we're partnering with teams who are set up as their own NGOs. So when I say we have 3 teams in Kenya, we have 1 in Haiti, we have 1 in Nigeria, 2 in Liberia. Each of those is their own NGO. So they're set up independently, running their own businesses, and then we're providing the funding on a project-by-project basis. So here you see a drilling on the left and a repair on the right, and some kids really eagerly awaiting their repair with their buckets. And finally, it is donor support here that provides the funding for the project. So without donors, the work couldn't happen. And we have so many donors all around Canada and through the US who are doing really creative things to help us fund the drilling, the repairs, and the health and hygiene projects. But the bottom line is that for communities that are earning $1 a day, funding a well that costs over $5,000 is simply out of reach. And when repairs are needed, if you have a choice between the well repair and food for your family, often it's not the repair that happens. So it is donor money that keeps the projects happening. I just wanted to show you quickly what projects cost. We work really hard to keep our numbers affordable. So around $5,500 for a new well. 40 dignity kits can be provided for around $250, $100 for a health and hygiene workshop. I've already commented on pump repairs at $125, well rehabs at $1,500 approximate, and latrines really vary from country to country and depending on the kind of washroom that's being built. We keep our costs really low. Lifewater operates with less than 10% overhead. There is an organization in Canada called Charity Intelligence that rates charities. Over 800 charities are looked at, and we're really proud to say that in the last 6 years in a row, Lifewater Canada has been one of the top 10 impact charities. The bottom line is that just over $1 can provide a child with safe water for a year. Now think about that. Go into the dollar store. You can barely buy something at the dollar store for $1 anymore, right? Everything's just a little more expensive, $2, $3. What does that mean to us? It's a cup of coffee, it's a chocolate bar, it's a pen. We can make a really big difference, even with small donations. So often at this point, people ask me, how can I help? Obviously, it is the donations that keep us running, but we also ask if you're willing to consider sharing information with others. Take a look at our website. I brought some pamphlets. Grab a pamphlet on your way out. Maybe grab an extra one for somebody that you think might be interested in learning about Lifewater. Follow us on social media. And most of all, we ask that you lift us up in prayer. A motto that we've been starting to use is every time you drink, stop and think. We are so blessed to have the water that we have. Clean, safe, accessible water. Thank you for taking a moment to hear our story. And please remember what these before and after pictures look like. Where would you rather drink? Thank you.